I want to ask you because I think a lot of people get this confused. Is like, what is exactly the job of a principal? Because I looked it up before this, and it says online, like this is the wiki definition. A school principal oversees the daily activities and operations within the school. Their main duties include disciplining or advising students, approving teachers' curriculums, and ensuring the school environment is safe for all students and staff members. Is that is there anything else that goes into that, or like is there like do you have to do file management or like boring stuff like that, or like is there anything, or is that basically it?
I would say that the definition you obtain from Wiki is solid. It's sufficient. Um, but simply, Nick and Kobe, I would say that it's probably most surmised and just anything and all things related to the operation of the building. And that's making sure, obviously safety. So things in terms of the sidewalks are snow plowed and salted to prevent injuries from taking place, making sure that food services is up and ready and running. So any facets whatsoever that deal with how a school operates would fall under the auspice or the umbrella of what a principal is supposed to advise or supervise.
How did you get into it? Like what did like as a child, like well, not as a child, but like as a through your teenage years, did you always know you wanted to be in the school system?
No, not at all. Um, I was fortunate growing up in that I had a lot of wonderful teachers, and I mean truly wonderful and impactful teachers, from kindergarten all the way up, even through college. Mrs. Dawson, Mrs. Coker, Mrs. Booker, Mrs. Hecker, Mrs. Fernandez, Mrs. Ray. Yeah, yeah. I mean, just naming, going, Mrs. Williams, Mrs. K, Mrs. Thornton, Frenchie. One of the things that I'll say, and then I'll get to answering your question directly, is that almost all of the teachers that I had, though, were all female.
Oh, okay.
And so the other piece to that, that I'll share with you all is that I initially was a pre med major.
Oh, shoot.
And yeah, I participated in a summer academic program at OU and discovered at the end of that program that I didn't want to commit or devote my life the next 10 years to schooling. So at the age of 18, I'll say maybe the end of my freshman fall quarter, I changed my major from pre med to education because I didn't want to go to school for 10 years. And lo and behold, I ended up amassing a total of 9 years in school with my master's and doctorate combined. So I guess you could say, and this sort of gives credence to the things that your parents tell you all as well. When you're 18, you think you know it all.
Yeah.
But the older you get, the more you realize that you have no idea what life has in store for you. So
What was uh what was the catalyst for you deciding that you didn't want to go into pre-med? Is there a reason behind that?
honestly, yeah, man, I was 18. I just did not want to commit to doing 8 years straight. I didn't want to do undergrad, 4 years of undergrad, and then end up going straight into 4 years of med school and then trying to find a residency for a year or 2 years. And I was just like, man, I'm ready to start making some money, you know. So at that point in time, I had a discussion with my mother and my aunt, and I had been preparing myself for the previous 3 or 4 years as a high school student to pursue this pre med track. And I had that conversation and told them that I didn't want to do 8 to 10 years of school, and they gave me their blessing to pursue what I wanted to do and do what I wanted to make me happy. And so I made the change to elementary education and never looked back.
So you started at elementary education, and then you kind of made your way up, or like how did that kind of work?
Sure, great question. So I've been, I'll say, I'll call it a blessing. I've had this blessing or this anointing on my life in that um, I'm always, all of my jobs have been centered around helping others. Even from the time that I worked as a high school student, I worked at Wendy's for maybe like 3 months, and then Long John Silver's for maybe like 3 months. But every job that I had truly was working in a rec center or working at a summer camp. So I've always been helping others. And so when I made the decision to switch my major from pre med to elementary ed, I did that for 4 years. I taught sixth grade, all subjects in East Cleveland, Ohio. And then I did a reading intervention program for fourth and fifth grade students in Shaker Heights, Ohio, and then decided to go back to school to obtain a master's. So for me, it was truly about helping the youth because I strongly felt then and feel even more strongly about it now that it's easier to build strong men than to repair broken children.
Mm.
And that's a quote that can be attributed to Frederick Douglass. So for me, it was all about helping out the youth.
Well, that leads me to like my next question is like, what was your childhood like? Because I know you didn't grow up in Delaware, did you, or did you?
No, I'm originally from Mansfield, Ohio, by way of Cleveland. So shout out to Mansfield and Cleveland.
What was your childhood like, man? I know you're a shoe concierge. Did you grow up on the Jordans and everything? And the
Absolutely not.
Oh, really? So you got into it recently?
I would say I got into it probably in my 20s, meaning when I was a sophomore or so in college and could actually afford to purchase those shoes on my own. I grew up in very humble beginnings. My mother was a single parent, and she raised myself and my brother, and so we didn't, or she didn't have a lot of that disposable income to purchase, Jordans for two boys, two growing boys, as well as keep us in the latest fashion. So our family stepped in and provided us with a lot of hand-me-downs. There was some, well, not some, there was a lot of government assistance extended to our family. So certainly I grew up in what some people might say is poor, and certainly the way that I grew up materially or from a materialistic standpoint was poor, but we were certainly rich with love. And that was one thing that our family didn't lack from our immediate family to our extended family. There was a lot of love present. So what we lacked in those material possessions, we made up with love.
Were you always like a fan of it, or did you always want to have those things as a kid, or did you kind of just figure I'm never gonna be able to afford this stuff, and then you eventually, or did you like in college get into that style?
No, it was obviously it's something that you grow up with, like, especially when you are heavy into sports the way that our family was. You see some of the latest shoe fashions and trends, as well as some of the latest clothing fashions and trends. And you watch a lot of different videos and you see these items, and you certainly dream or wish that you could have those things. So when I got to the age, I got my first job when I was 10, and I actually started earning a paycheck.
Sorry, you
And
said 10 years old. Kobe looked at me. He was like, "What?"
yeah, 10 years old, man, I was in the fifth grade. And believe it or not, you guys are familiar with it in the sense of the YMCA, but you know how the Y runs those rec leagues?
Hmm.
I started out, it was a group of us. We started out keeping the score clock and the book for
Oh, okay.
basketball games.
Mm.
And they would pay us at the time. Minimum wage was like $2 or something
Oh,
like that an hour.
$2
Yeah,
an
man.
hour, bro.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
dead ass,
goodness, dude.
dead ass.
So
So
so you started from the bottom, man, and you made your way up.
bottom, bro, bottom, no cap, straight facts. And so that's for me. That's why I say this journey has been and continues to be a humbling experience.
Well, I know you. Well, let me just say, like you're like everyone knows you as like the cool principal, bro. And was there any like when you were in school, was there any like cool principal that you kind of like wanted that influenced you to be the way you are now?
Well, first, let me say, man, I'm appreciative of the fact that people think that I'm cool. I think that's a testament uh, to my creator God, and certainly the way that I was raised. I don't set out to be cool. I set out to be myself. And what happens is that for the most part, by and large, everybody gets to interact with an authentic me. What sets me apart in that regard is that I truly remember what it was like to be in high school. So I never try to conduct myself as if I'm this 40, 50, or 60-year-old man who doesn't recall his teenage years. So for me, it's understanding that middle school students and high school students are fragile, both emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, and even academically, but then giving them room to try to find themselves. And one of the things that hopefully you and Kobe will agree with is that if a student comes to Hayes and does what she or he is expected to do in terms of just go to class, do your homework, um, you won't have any issues with me or any other administrator for that matter. But it isn't until, some student begins running afoul of those expectations that we have to quote unquote administer or administrate different things. So
Yeah. What were you gonna say? Anything?
I was just say like I feel like when we were there was definitely like a lot of people that did a lot of stupid stuff. Like especially like I feel like in the 4 years that I was there, I saw like a lot more fights than I expected.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing about high school is, and like you said, I love how you put it. Like everyone's like, oh, high school, it's just like it doesn't really matter. Like, and we say that all the time. But if you really think about it, like that's where you're trying to like find who you are as a person. Like you don't, and still to this day, I don't really fully know who I am as a person. Like I'm still learning day to day by the experiences I have with in relationships I have with people, and I think that's what how you put it is like that's a great reason why you're kind of doing it is you realize that high schoolers are fragile and they don't truly understand themselves yet and things like that can definitely lead into
Mhm.
fights and things that we've seen you breaking up before, um, and that's a job as a principal.
so I will say this, Nick, and you hit the nail on the head. You said that you're still learning. If there's any adult that's listening, we are all still learning. I'm 42 years old and I'm still learning who I am as a person, especially in other areas of life. So as long as we keep that mindset that we're constantly growing, then I think there's this thing called grace that we can extend to each other because we realize that we're not finished products. I also will say I need to give a special shout out to a principal who helped me along my way, and that was Coach Stan Jefferson. Um, he was Mr. Stan Jefferson when I was in school because he was the assistant principal. But were it not for him, I certainly, and I mean this sincerely, I probably wouldn't be on a path that I am now, in that I would not have pursued college. So, Coach Jay, if you are listening, thank you. I know I told you this time and time again over the phone and face to face, but I want to say it um, over the airwaves as well, man. I salute you, sir, and I'm grateful for the impact that you've had on my life. And thank you for certainly seeing something in me and leading me down a different path.
Well, going to that point, and we talk about this almost every podcast, is the
And
college
every
thing.
day too,
Yeah,
like
every day is the college thing. I'm sure you're aware that I was going to Bowling Green for a while, and I was in the National Guard, or and yeah, I'm actually wearing BGSU right now. But me and Kobe both aren't not in school anymore. And when we were in high school, a lot of probably what was the percentage?
every
Every teacher, I'd say about 90% of the teachers would try to push you to go to college, and um, I know you're big on college, and I wanted to get your full thoughts on that. Like, what is your thoughts behind kids going to college? Do you think it has a huge effect on their lives, or do you think people should try to figure out what they want to do early on, and do you think it's worth it?
Sure. Let me correct a few misconceptions. First, I'm not big on college per se, but I am big. I am big on education, and so whether that be pursuing a 2 year degree, a 4 year degree, or terminal degrees in terms of masters or PhDs or EDDs or JDs or MDs or DOs, any of those, I'm certainly a proponent and an advocate for. But I'm also a proponent and an advocate for those individuals who decide that a vocational track is what's best for them. So whether that be pursuing licensing in electrical uh, wiring or um, welding or firefighting. I'm just a proponent of not being stagnant and always continuing to deepen and broaden one's own knowledge base. So if that means that a kid is encouraged to go to college, great. But if that means that I encourage individuals to pursue a vocational track, then that's what I'm all for. And certainly to know that you and Kobe are taking some time, and I want to say, I think what you all are doing is admirable. I repeat, I think it's admirable because you all have decided that right now, at this stage and place and space in your lives, you don't want to go to college,
Did you get that notification too?
which is cool. I did. Yeah, I had to pause and read it for a moment. You all don't want to go to college. That's cool. And I respect the fact that neither one of you are wasting your parents' money, nor are you putting yourselves into financial debt and pursuing something that you really don't want to do. So, shout out to you guys. Kudos to you guys for realizing and recognizing that, at least right now, this isn't the path that I want to go down. However, I will challenge both of you right now, here today, and say that if you are not pursuing college, then you need to be working full time. You need to be amassing um, bank accounts, both in terms of checking and savings, so that as your life begins to mature and develop within the next year or 3 years, and you make a decision in terms of what it is that you truly want to do, you will be positioned financially to pursue that without incurring some of those obstacles that many others do. So take the time, some people call it a gap year. Take the time to find out what it is that you're passionate about, what it is that you would like to pursue, and do that. But in the meantime, prepare for the future by working and by getting yourself some experiences that you may not be afforded otherwise.
Mm. Yeah, I think, and Upstrom said this on her podcast. She said she said she doesn't really care what necessarily what field you go into, but it's more about being passionate about a subject and constantly being educated about it. She said
Correct.
education is probably the number one thing that's like the number one value someone can have in their life. And I definitely think she's right on that. I think, and we talk about this too, like if you have to be passionate about a job, and I'm sure you are about nurturing kids and everything, and like for me it's the video stuff. Like I am super passionate about it, and like for me to go to college and learn about video, like I saw the value in it, but I also saw the value in, taking a year off and working full time and doing another job, making money and saving up my money for, you know, education, like online training and like new equipment instead of, going to college and learning classes. I wanted to take all my time and resources into learning specifically about video, if that makes sense. So it really just depends on what you're passionate about and what you want to do and figuring that out as soon as possible, if you would agree with that.
I certainly agree with that. Nick, and I'll say two things. One, there's a quote by Malcolm X, and it says, education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. The second thing that I'll say is that what you just described in terms of your journey and what Kobe is experiencing in his, I'll say this. There are many routes to get to a destination. If you all pull out your phone and you insert an address into GPS, what you'll find is that there are probably at least three or four routes that will take you to the same place. So it doesn't matter per se how you get there as long as you get there. And sometimes people choose to go the quickest route. Sometimes people choose to go the most scenic route. Sometimes people choose to go the route that provides and presents the most adventure. Again, it doesn't matter as long as you're moving and as long as you get there.
See, that's the complicated part about it is everyone has a different destination, whether it be just pure happiness or money or love or success. What is the most important to you, and do you feel you have reached that and achieved that yet? I know that's a super deep question, but
No, no. It's one of those questions. I think honestly, I think the answer morphs based upon one's experience and the things that one maybe has achieved or amassed in life. So right now at this age and space in my life, I would say there's not one thing that's important, but more so a combination of those things that you mentioned, right? That internal personal happiness, having money, being able to help and do for others. So it's almost like a chemistry experiment, in that you want to make sure that there is a great balance. But at different, and at different points and phases and stages in my life, I could say that, when I was 17, 18, 19, it was all about being happy. And then, when I got into my 30s, it was about, hey, okay, well, what can I do to get the type of bank account that I want? And now, as I've gotten even older than that, it's like, okay, well, how do I find that balance? Because I want to feel good internally, but I also want to be able to experience the world in the way that I choose to, whether that's through travel, whether that's through philanthropy, whether that's through spiritual development and growth. Like, I want to be able to do the things that I want to. And so, what I will say is that education has afforded me to do those things, but also achieve that awareness in that regard.
yeah, d- like, and that's another thing. Like, I think success can be defined as many different things for different people. I think you can agree too.
I just think it's like, well, like with what you asked him, I feel like it's just like the only thing I find kind of sad is like the people that like I feel like anybody that like says like, oh, like I want to have money, like people like take that and they're just like, okay, like he's a douche, like he
Mm.
just wants to, be super rich, like throw it in everybody's face. And like that's not the case about 95% of the time with people
Mm.
that like just want to make money.
Yeah, and I think it's not just money necessarily too. I think success, like everyone's like, okay, being successful equals having money and being a millionaire. But I don't think that's the only thing. I think, it requires love, and I think a big part of it is understanding yourself and what you want, because nowadays I think a lot of like people are getting their happiness from pleasing others, like getting the latest car
Well,
or
and you'll see like a lot of like mainstream influencers who like have all this money and like all this like what people like to call success, and they're just like not happy.
yeah. Like it's crazy too. Like the biggest celebrities that we look up to on social media, like like a good example is like Justin Bieber, right? He's the biggest celebrity in the world, and he has countless top hit songs.
Mm-hmm.
Does what he loves for a living. Is probably a millionaire, and he made a whole album about how he was just depressed at one point, and he was at the bottom of his happiness level in life. And I think that's super interesting, how that works, how even if you have it all, if you don't understand what you want, um, it still doesn't really matter unless you understand what you truly want.
I will say too, like I feel like sometimes people forget like that, like people like Justin Bieber, like they're just human as well. Like just because like they're super famous or like have a lot of money, like that doesn't make them like above anybody. Like they're the same as us, and I feel like people don't understand that.
Yeah, that is really weird. Like we could be celebrities
Well,
right now if we wanted to.
so that's what I was about to say. So a couple of things. One, you guys are celebrities, and what I mean by that is that there are some people in the city, some people that you all know in your social circles, and certainly there are some younger kids that are looking up to you. So understand that your level rather of celebrity is different than a Justin Bieber's, but you're still a celebrity nonetheless. The other thing that I'll tell you all is this: is that there are a lot of followers out there in the world. And I say followers in that they allow others to define happiness for them. So I agree with your point, Nick, in that success is defined individually. It's not necessarily about what others think or want for you, but rather what you want for yourself. There are people who are successful because they have their own business, they own their own business, right? And then there are people who pursue success through financial gains. There are people who are successful because they make music the way that they want to, or they produce media in the way that they want to. So it is defined differently, but I would say oftentimes so many people allow others to define success for them. Oh, he doesn't have 50,000 followers. Or, oh, he's not on the level of a Kim Kardashian who has over 220 million followers on Twitter. So he's not successful. No, we are all successful just in our own right, in our own way.
Hmm. Yeah, I was about to say. Remember when we went to Sheets and
Hmm.
we literally got recognized by some like kid, like
I had no idea
that
who he
that
was.
we and I looked at Kobe. We were like, do you know that kid? And then I was like, he was like, no. And like so like little things like that really make you sit back and just be like, wow, like people actually like look up to us and like are asking about like the new RatCast episode. So I like that the way you put it, Dr. Bowen, is like there's all different levels to this word celebrity. Like it's not there isn't a level that you need to reach to become a celebrity. It's just all about self-eternal stuff.
Absolutely, man. And we are all responsible for our sphere of influence. And like I said, that makes us a celebrity in that regard. So certainly, man, be a star wherever you are. You'll see signs and or posters all over the place. Grow where you're planted. And when you grow where you're planted, man, you'll find out that there are blossoms that extend far and wide.
Hmm. Uh, moving on. I know this is super.
Just real quick, shout out that guy that saw us at
Oh
Sheets.
yeah, I don't know who you are, but shout out that guy. Moving on though. I know this is a super broad question, but what do you do outside of work? Just straight up, what do you do outside of work, man?
Honestly, man, I told you I love family. I'm big on family. So I spend a lot of time. Hold on one second, gentlemen.
Oh, you're good. Man is dedicated to his job. He's doing it while he's at work.
I'm trying to figure out where in the building he's at. I think he's in the office.
Yeah, I think he's in the office. He's a hard worker.
Sorry about that, guys.
No, you're good. You're good.
I'm sorry. What was the question?
I was asking, what do you do outside of work, like straight up, like day to day?
Yeah, no cap. I like to hang out with my family and friends. I bowl. I listen to music. Depending on the day and the mood, you might see me walking around the city or out riding a bike. Really, just some of anything and everything. I know your mom personally, Nick. She'll tell you that I love to shop because I do. It's very therapeutic for me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, we were talking about
so
that earlier. What was your first pair of Jordans that you ever got? that
Um,
you can remember at least?
I bought a pair of Jordans when I was like 18, and the only way that I was able to afford them was, I believe the store was Foot Locker or Champs. They had this, which is crazy because they would never think of doing this now, but they had this promo going. It was buy one pair of shoes, get another pair of shoes of equal or lesser value for $1.
Uh,
Dead,
what?
dead, dead serious. As the youngins in the streets say, dead ass, G, dead ass.
So
Uh,
everyone, so I'm guessing at the time everyone was like, "Oh my God, we got to go to Foot Locker right now!" Like it was just like
well,
the
but
thing.
now keep in mind, I grew up in the, this was '97 that I graduated. So back then Jordans were like $120. So I bought a pair of Timberland boots. That's when I got my first pair of Timberlands or Timbos,
Fire,
and
fire.
wheat. They was all wheat too. You know what I mean? But I got those, and then I got a pair of J's for to go along with the promo.
Do you remember what
So
number it was?
no, I really don't. I just remember thinking to myself like, man, like this is the first pair of Jordans that I bought. Like
You're like, "Damn, I made it."
even now, like they're like, man, like bro,
What's your favorite
maybe
Jordan number or colorway, whatever?
um, so that's what I'm about to say. I like the cool grays. I like the 11s obviously, but then I like some 13s. I
Because I
like
know
some
you're a fan
threes.
of the ones, right?
Yeah, I like the ones and the fours.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm a big fan of the
honestly,
fours and the fives.
yeah, I'll say honestly, it just depends on the colorway.
Yeah.
So for, if it's the right color and I got an outfit that I can rock with it, and I got to cop them.
Well, going back to what you do on a day-to-day basis, you said you listen to music. What type of music do you listen to? Do you listen to like the new age stuff, or do you listen to like, old school stuff?
Both. Um, I'm saying this in all sincerity. Um, I have traditionally been a rap and an R&B kind of guy, but most recently, like as in the last like 3 weeks ago, I worked security at a country music festival,
I knew
Mm.
it.
and
Yeah, I knew it.
and man, I'm telling you, like, and I was blown away. Like, yo, man, I
It
gotta
kind of
get
bums.
into
It
the
kind of.
country, right?
Dude,
Like,
I've always well not always. I'd say like I started listening to country probably like sophomore year is when I got into it. It's really not like I can't listen to it like all the time like I can with rap, but it's all
Dude,
right.
I used to hate country. Every time my mom would put it on the radio, I'd be like, "Mom, turn that shit off, bro." And what's funny is now they're kind of infusing the genres now.
The
Like,
pop and
yeah,
yes,
country.
yeah, like I don't know if you know. Do you know who Post Malone is?
Post Malone,
Yeah.
White Iverson, yeah, get out of
He's like,
here.
yeah. No, he's getting into country now. I don't know if you knew
Well,
that.
there's a country artist named Kane Brown. He has a song with Sway Lee and Khalid.
Yeah,
Yeah, which is crazy. It's
Ray Shrimmer, shout out to Ray Shrimmer.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I don't got no type.
Who's your
Good
favorite?
music is the only music that I like. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I mess with it all. If you get in my car, most days I have gospel playing, Christian, music playing, just because I'm trying to get to a different place in my life, spiritually. So I try to be protective of my ear gates now. But yeah, man, I listen to a lot jazz, the blues. I love the blues, and I love being around my older family members who allow me to uh, glean from them in terms of what different songs of the blues means, and country falls right into that as well in terms of digesting the lyrics and everything. So yeah, man, I'm beginning to expand my musical palette more and more.
See,
So
see, I was gonna tell you this 2 days ago. I made a new Spotify playlist for like 2000 and through 2010 music,
Hmm.
and dude, That music is underrated. I know everyone's talking about oh the 80s music, the 90s rap, but like dude, the 2000 to
2000, 2010.
2010 rap is actually fire. I was just about to ask you who's like your favorite rap artist right now?
For me, I would say my favorite artists right now, Ti and Jay Z. Since you talked about rap artists, I listen to those guys a lot. I
Cuz
listen to
Jay-Z kind of
Jeezy.
like started the new age rap, I'd say.
Yeah, he certainly is. He's a goat. He's going to be on that route, that Mount Rushmore for a lot of people. My age, I'd say maybe anybody maybe 50 and below. He's going to be on their Mount Rushmore. Uh, Little Wayne's going to be on their Mount Rushmore. Um, you know, and then
Drake.
that's where I would say obviously Drake, but then you could put J. Cole up there. You can put K. Dot up there. There's a lot of musical influences or artists really that are truly influential. So, but I mess with Jay, Ti, Jeezy in terms of rap. I'll do some of the new age guys, but I'll be honest, like I need to be challenged in terms of the lyrical content and some of and digesting and dissecting some of the entendres and double entendres that are used. And so for me, I like people that are intellectual in that craft.
Do you like where music is going right now? Cuz
I don't.
I don't know how I feel about it cuz we're stepping into an age where I feel like music is getting I don't want to say dumber, but just
No, it
like
is. Have you heard anything by Playboy Cardi or Trippie Redd recently?
yeah, it's just weird how like more and more of these artists who are just using auto tune and just like saying words over and over again are just getting more and more popular. I want to get your stance on that. Like, how do you feel about that? Like, do you like where it's going right now, or do you see a path where it can go?
So let me say this: I'm not an authority figure on that, and what I mean by that is that um, obviously we all have our own takes on the music that is being released and produced now. Um, I will say this though, it is diversifying what was previously out there. And so if you will apply and since both of you went to Hayes, I'll use this knowledge. If you will apply the scientific notion of evolution and think about it in regards to music, the musical landscape is evolving, meaning it is constantly changing. And so I appreciate the fact that it is changing now. It's going in a different direction, maybe not in a direction that I would like for it to go. But again, I'm not that creator. I'm not that the crafter of the music right now. And so I understand that it is a release for those individual people that are A, making the music, but then B, who are relating to it. And so for me, I respect the fact that it is evolving. If you were to ask your parents about music, or ask a great uncle or a neighbor, especially since we're talking about rap music, right? If you go back to the 70s, or and you hear people talk about Grandmaster Flash and Curtis Blow,
See,
and then
that's the thing. Like right there is like like if we were teenagers in the 70s right now, we wouldn't be about this rap stuff. We would be all
no,
into the funky music and like the synth wave and all that stuff. And that's what's crazy to me. I like we always see these old heads are like, oh yeah, I miss the old 80s music and like I hate this new rap stuff that people are doing. And it's crazy to me that we are probably gonna be those
Like
people one
that in the
day.
future, yeah.
Yeah.
honestly, you guys are those people now, and I mean that. No, think about it. You just said you don't like the way that it's going. That means your musical taste has changed. You're prejudiced. You're biased in terms of what you like based upon what you grew up around. And that's exactly the point that I was in the process of making, is that you look at some of those icons in the different eras and the different genres, whether, like I said, Curtis Blow or Grandmaster Flash, to LL Cool J, to Slick Rick, to Big Daddy Kane, to Salt and Pepper, and then it just keeps going. You look at Juvenile, you look at Lil Wayne, you look at all, and then you look at Cardi, Playboy Cardi, you look at 21 Savage, you look at some of these other cats. I mean, look at the fact that you got artists who are artists just based upon what they're doing off of YouTube.
Yeah, yeah, facts. There's YouTube
You know
rappers
what I'm
now. It's
saying?
crazy.
Right. Summer Walker,
Jake Paul.
Yeah, Jake Paul.
Queen Naja. These are people who made it big off of social media. So again, it's evolving, and you're absolutely right. You are at that point where you're like, nah, I ain't really feeling this. Well, that just means you grew up in a different type of era, and you are partial to that type of musical production from that era.
Was there anyone in your life like that, or did you just naturally get into hip hop and rap like growing up, like, or was like there was an influence that like got you into it?
I think for me, it was older relatives. Um, I had some cousins who were a couple years older than me, and so the music that they listened to, and when their friends would come over, obviously, little kids want to imitate and emulate older kids, and so again, that's just a natural part of life. I'm sure. I'm sure Ben follows you around, Nick, or at one point in time,
So does Kobe's
because that's
brother.
just right. And so what I was going to say, I think, is just one of those things, the people that you look up to, you kind of want to be like, and so whatever it is that they're doing, you want to do until you're able to get old enough to find your own niche, and kind of go from there. So yeah, I listened to that hardcore gangster rap growing up, that West Coast rap. Why? Because my cousins did. And then at some point in time, it was just like, oh, okay, cool. Let me start figuring out who it is that I like. And then it was, oh, let me bounce back out to the East Coast, or let me bounce down to the South, or let me stay here in the Midwest with Twista and Bone Thugs and Harmony and Crucial Conflict, and different things of that nature. So yeah, you've got those musical influences that come from the people that you surround yourself with in life.
Yeah, because I don't know how it was for you, but for me, like I didn't get into hip hop and raps till like later. Like,
I didn't either because my dad like only listens to like because I used to listen to stuff like my dad did, which was like Queen, Police, Jimi
yeah,
Hendrix,
I, I
the
was
Beatles, all that kind of stuff.
I was into like the mainstream like pop, like that Miley Cyrus Party in the USA. You feel me? And I didn't get into hip hop and rap until you know until high school when I was getting to the SoundCloud stuff, and I realized that was like a that's the culture we live in today, which is crazy. You wouldn't ever really expect that this is the main genre of music. I think when you think of mainstream, I always think of like pop, but it's crazy that we're slowly getting to a point where hip hop and rap is like the main thing now, and I think we already are in that age.
Well, and I would say that's the beauty of marketing, right? You create this thing called crossover. And so now you're taking all of these different subgroups, you're producing a sound that appeals to all of those sound groups, or these subgroups, excuse me. And now all of a sudden, like say, you got crossover music, and it's banging right now. It's booming. It is financially lucrative, and so that's what A&Rs get paid for. That's what publicists get paid for. Is how do we capitalize and find a new market group?
Um, Going back to like the principal thing, do you ever not like your
Hmm.
job, or do you always
Hmm.
enjoy it? Like, what are some of the things that like make you like I don't want to be at work today?
Um, so I love my job without any hesitation. I love it. What I don't like, and I'll say this to you all, I don't have any problems or issues with students. And what I mean by that is, again, I operate under the guise that Students are going to be students. Why? Because they're young and they are supposed to make mistakes. So I come into it with this notion of extending grace. I come into it with this notion of being patient to an extent. What makes my job difficult are the adults that we interact with while I occupy this role. Sometimes those adults are our parents. Sometimes those adults are other administrators. Sometimes those adults are other teachers. But it's the adults that make the job challenging because we are the ones who complicate things. It's not, pardon the bells,
No, you're good.
it's not necessarily,
I'm getting
it's not
PTSD right
necessarily,
now.
right. Yeah, it's not the students or even the issues that the students deal with, whether it's a fight, whether it's a drug violation, whether it's a breakup between partners, romantic partners, or the dissolution of a friendship. That those are parts of life, right? And high school is the place where if we can teach young people how to respond to those adverse conditions now, then we have equipped them to deal with those conditions when, not if, but when they experience them in their latter adult lives. So again, for me, it's a part of the game. It's the adults who have ulterior motives, who have or are equipped with selfish gains, or who believe that they and or their children should receive preferential treatment because they're special. And my honest philosophy is that hell, all kids are special. All families are special to somebody, to somebody. So for me, I look forward to coming to work every day. I don't look forward to dealing with the bull crap that comes along with it. And oftentimes that bull crap manifests itself in the form of adult interactions. And usually that's because someone's emotions have become intense or unstable.
Yeah, I mean, being a principal, I mean, everyone thinks, oh, well, they probably have to do like they have to do paperwork and they have to do manage files and stuff like that. Uh, and that's probably a majority of what they do. But I'd say from what you're telling me, a lot of it is just micromanaging people, and so
Correct.
you deal with people more than anything at the school. Um,
Yeah.
and I know we were talking about this earlier. The fights, the school fights. So every time it's always in the lunchroom usually, or in a hallway or whatever, and you're usually the one to break it up. Um, and I don't know if you want to speak on it, but what is the craziest fight that you've ever broken up?
So here's what I tell the students who are either in my office for a fight or who are in my office because they're getting ready to get into a fight. Your parents experienced fights in school, as did your grandparents. And so I always want to create a context. And that context is that there have always been fights in schools. What I will say is everything that you just said, Nick and Kobe, I want you guys to think about it. You said it's always in a lunchroom or always in a hallway. Well, why? Who's always there? People. And so when you understand that fighting is all about entertainment, now the people in the fight don't see it that way. But when you are removed from the situation, you understand that. Think about it. This is all about getting somebody else's attention. So I'm trying to send a message to other people about who I am, how big and bad and tough I am. So there would never be a fight if nobody stopped to watch it.
Yeah,
Yeah, you gotta think there's always somebody that's like, oh, bro, we gotta record this. Like, we gotta get this on
yeah,
Snapchat. Blah blah blah.
yeah. That's always how it goes. Like if there's a fight about to go down, there's always a cameraman there that wants it recorded so everyone can see.
There's a cameraman, and then there has to be a large crowd. And again, for me, I get it. It's entertainment. Those people who are pumping those combatants up, they don't really care what happens to them after the fact. All they want to do is be entertained. Ooh, did you see that? Did you hear that? And then literally after the fight, most of the bystanders go on about their business.
Dude, and I think what's funny about fighting in school is like people care more about the outside like view of you instead of actually beating the other person in the fight. Like that's what's crazy to me. Like people care more about being known as this figure that won the fight instead of actually the issue that they're fighting about.
Correct. And that's why I say even in that, what you just said, Nick, so much of that is about evolving, evolution, right? Growing, maturation. And when you get to the point where you're like, man, I don't really care that you think I'm a sucker. I don't really care that you think I'm soft because I'm wearing deck shoes or I got on a Pink Floyd t-shirt and I'm not hard enough for you. Like when a person is able to get to that level, then that's when you start to see the appeal of fights subside. I don't care that you had sex with my boyfriend or my girlfriend, or we broke up and now you're the new lover in their life. Okay, it is what it is. Move on. Like I don't think people, especially, I don't think students, yeah, the bill. I don't think students, and this is a part of adolescent development. I don't think people understand that rejection is a part of life. Loss is a part of life.
Yeah.
And so when you can get to that place where the opinions of others don't move you or aren't as important to you as they once were, that's when you win the game. But until then, you're going to always be enslaved to the opinions and the thoughts of others and the emotions of others.
I mean, we talk about it all the time. Like in high school, everybody's like trying to. There's always somebody trying to impress another person or like a crowd of people. Like everybody thinks you have to be like the most popular. Everybody has to like you, and it's like it will never be that way, no matter how hard you try. Like there will always be somebody that does not like you, for maybe a reason that's within themselves or something about you, or they're jealous or
Yeah.
something. Like you will never have it to where everybody likes you.
No. And that's the Kobe, you just hit the nail on the head in that regard. Like so much or so many of the fights that take place, they really, if you get to the root of it, man, it's because somebody is feeling a certain kind of way internally about themselves.
Yeah,
Whether
and
it's
and
not,
and
whether it's not, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was well going back to what you just said. I want to get your stance on high school popularity. I know that's we're changing subjects here, but what are your because we talked a little bit about this with Upstrom, and basically her thought on it is after high school it doesn't really matter. Like everyone always has their own like social circle, and Upstrom even said this, and we can say the same thing ourselves. Is like we only know like, and this is what 2 years out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
Like we only talked to like 2 to 3 people from our high school class, and that social circle of popularity and wanting to be the most popular kid in school, I think it really gets into the heads of kids, and I think it can consume their lives and losing sight of what school is all about, like like what we were talking about earlier is the education and learning, nurturing people. And I want to get your opinion on, is this a problem that you see day to day today, or and what are some of the things that you try to do as a teacher to try to avoid that?
So one of the things that I'll say is that it's a simple question, but it has a complex answer. And I'll quote Donald Trump, and this will be the only time that you'll ever hear me quote Trump, in that it's all fake news, right? It's all fake news. But at the age of 14, at the age of 15, 16, 17, 18, this world is all I know. So it becomes the most important thing to me.
What? Sorry to cut you off. What do you exactly mean by fake news?
So Mrs. Upstrom, and she's absolutely spot on. She says it doesn't matter because your social circles change once you leave high school, right? You guys just acknowledged it as well. You all probably talked to maybe two or three people that you went to high school with to this day. And so I say it's fake news in that we spend so much time in high school trying to impress people that are literally only in our lives for a snapshot, for a small amount of time. And so we're trying to figure out what I'm going to wear to the football game, what I'm going to wear to school. Am I going to turn up this weekend at the game or at Kobe's house or at Nick's house? And can I get this girl? And can I be the best player on this team? Or can I have the most attractive girlfriend or most attractive boyfriend? Can I just be that cool guy? Can I be that man? Can I be the guy? We spend so much time trying to focus or thinking about those things that we lose sight of who we are
And
as
I think another thing
individuals.
is like the coolest people don't ever think about that stuff.
No, it's natural. It comes natural. And that's what I mean. High school is where you find yourself. And so many students are trying to find themselves in that regard. And so for me, I use the term fake. It's all fake news because we're pursuing something that's it's only real in that moment. And it's not even really real. It exists in that moment. And so sadly, and I'll try to transition the conversation, for anyone who has contemplated the thoughts of suicide or unfortunately who have been successful in committing suicide, it's because they aren't able to see what lies beyond the immediate future. And so oftentimes that's what happens to many of our kids in high school. It's difficult for them to see beyond high school. It's easy for me as a 30, 40, 50, 60-year old to say, oh, Nick, oh, Kobe, don't worry about it. These jerks, these assholes that you're encountering now, you probably won't even know who they are in
Because you see the
five
bigger
years. You
picture.
won't. I see the bigger picture, but I realize that to a 16-year-old, to a 17-year-old, to an 18-year-old, to a 14-year-old, to a 13-year-old, like, well, I can't even see myself in 5 years or in 10 years.
I
So
like how
this is
you,
just
I
what
just
I
like how you
have.
said immediate future because like for us like we just like stopped going to school one day
Hmm.
because like the whole COVID thing, but like once we like eat like I will say like even like a week after we stopped going to school, like it's crazy how many people you just like don't talk to or
Yeah.
like it really was immediate like okay like
Literally the
this
day
person and I were
after.
just like not I wouldn't even say friends, we were just like like we just talked because we were at school like we would
Right.
never, it's crazy.
And they just become,
No
nobodies.
one.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing about that too, guys, right? Think about it this way. And this is what I say to kids anytime I see them in a hallway, in a cafeteria, in my office, at a football game, basketball, wherever, track meet, soccer event, whatever. And I'm like, man, and I'm talking, who's your friend? And they tell me, and I say, well, okay, well, what's your friend's name? And they're like, Nick. Okay. So what's Nick's last name? I don't know.
Yeah.
And so as an adult, I stopped because I'm like, wait a second.
Shouldn't you know their last name?
Right. I thought you said Nick was your friend.
Right.
Because to me, I know all of my friends' first names and their last names,
Yeah.
right? And Kobe, what you just said is so true. We have been brainwashed into thinking that if we talk to somebody or if we follow somebody or like something that somebody posted, we're friends with them. When the true reality of the matter is that we're conversing with each other, but we don't know each other.
It's almost like because we have to, like because we're at school, like just so that we're like not speaking and it's not awkward. Like,
Hmm.
okay, like I don't know.
I just think it's a huge. I just think it's a huge thing that gets into people's heads, and I just wish there was somehow we could communicate that it doesn't matter, but you can't realize it until you're
I
out.
mean, even like us, we didn't realize until
Yeah,
after.
like even when I was a senior, I was still so caught up in that stuff. I was still caught up in being popular and getting with this girl or doing this thing or wearing this thing or hanging out with this group. But it's super hard to realize it until you're out and you really get the experience of not seeing these people again. And I wish, I don't know if you have ever tried to portray that to kids, but it's very hard for us to understand that until you truly experience it.
The other hard thing to understand is people always say like, "Oh, high school is gonna go by so fast," and like when you're living it day to day, you're like, "This is like the worst. This is the worst."
Yeah,
But
yeah,
then
yeah.
like when you graduate or when you get that diploma, you're like, "Damn, like it's over."
It's over. Yeah.
And what you both just said is um, why I am as passionate as I am and why I go as hard as I do in school, because I try to impart some of those lessons to any and everyone who will listen. What you all have just talked about, what you just described, is this thing called experience, and life affords us experience. So the more we live, the more we experience life, the more we can begin to shape and change our opinions and views on things. As you all indicated, you didn't arrive um, at the place you're at during high school because you were immersed in it. And it wasn't until it was taken away from you that you realized, oh, well, that stuff don't even matter. And that's what life does. We get experience and then life changes. Hopefully it changes our outlook, it changes our perspective, and it changes the way that we interact with others moving forward. So all of those relationships that you don't have from high school, I would say use that as fuel moving forward, Nick, moving forward, Kobe, to create new relationships with people that you just now encounter. So even when you go to the grocery store, or when you go to the gas station and you meet a stranger, allow yourself to truly interact with that stranger in the moment, because you don't know what your interaction with them will do and how that interaction will impact their life. It truly could save their life. A simple smile, a hello, a handshake, or whatever. And so, again, take the lessons, the experiences that you all have amassed in high school, and allow those to be part of the foundation that propels you moving forward into the rest of your adult lives. You all know about fake friends. So
So
don't
don't
be
snake in the
one.
grass.
Right. So as you interact with people, don't be that person. And as you as those type of people are exposed, stay away from them. Don't continue to interact with them.
Well, that's the kind of like the beautiful thing about high school is you say interact with others. Like as much as we looked up to other people or these so-called popular people, there's also people that you've never even like that I've never even talked to or seen in the hallways that I never would have thought of even to have a conversation
Hmm.
with or interact with. And that's what I think is great about high school is that you have those opportunities. You just got to take them.
Well, one of the things I hate is that like everybody thought was like kind of stupid, and I did think it was kind of stupid at first, but I actually made like a lot of my friends this way was house because like you didn't have an option of who was in there with you.
Mhm.
Like they made it like super random, like with like gender, age, like all that other kind of stuff. Like
Were you a part of the creation of House, or I can't remember if you were working there at the time, or like how did that come to be?
No, I was not. That is not my brainchild. That is actually the brainchild of Mr. Reader. And so that's something that he was instrumental in doing and bringing and setting up and implementing. But to your point, Kobe and Nick, to your point as well, that's what I'm saying. It is about stepping outside of your comfort zone, stepping outside of the group of people that you ordinarily interact with. Meet someone new, because guess what? That person might actually become your friend. Whereas the people that you have always surrounded yourself with and by, they may end up disappearing later on in the road. So don't, and this is what I think so often many high school students do, they limit themselves. They limit themselves based upon likes. Oh, I like football, so I'm going to play football. Okay, we'll play football, but try something else.
Yeah, another thing is like they limit themselves and like okay, so I like football, so I'm gonna only hang with the football players. Then if you only hang with those football players, you're not gonna know what it's like to hang out with someone else, and you might like dancing more than you like football, or you might like doing this thing, or like you like the conversations that you have with another person more. So it's always about stepping out of your comfort zone. That's what life is all about.
Absolutely. And it's in those moments when we take risks, sometimes we fail, but a lot of times we succeed. And in the process of taking those risks, we find out more about ourselves. Our strengths are accentuated. Our weaknesses or our areas of concern or areas of growth are minimized, and we become stronger. And so again, it's just about, like you said, taking that risk and stepping out.
I feel like in high school it's just like, well, like you said, friendships, but like especially relationships too. Like people are like, oh, like she's not popular, so like I can't go for
Facts.
her, or like, oh, like my boys might clown me for this, but it's like you don't know like who you might have like a lot of common interests with or like really get along with.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you don't. But if you limit yourself to only interacting with select people, then you're never gonna find those things out. You're never gonna find those things out. So that's why I always tell people, I tell students, man, do something you wouldn't do this summer, YouTube, right now, and you guys are perfectly placed and positioned and primed to do it. You're not in school, you're not, you have work, and then you go home. Take a road trip together with somebody. Step out somewhere, do something different.
Like a good example is like this podcast. If we were in high school right now and you came to me and you're like, "Oh, let's do a podcast
You'd be
together,"
like, no,
I would be like, "No, people are gonna clown us." But now that we're out and we
we didn't
realize
care. We were just like, yeah,
we don't care because
we're doing it for
we're
us.
doing it for us and it's something that we enjoy day to day. And look at us now. We're almost about to hit 100 subscribers. We're getting people to notice that at Shees,
Yeah,
and it's it's really rewarding and to know that something that you is giving you self-love, not trying to please other people, is coming full circle and people are appreciating you for
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Ab- Absolutely. Um, and then understanding, and I'm going to shift the focus of our conversation right now, because I think so much of what we have been talking about, there's this underlying tenant or underlying theme, and that is of trauma, right? Sometimes the experiences that we have shaped us in a positive way, and sometimes they have shaped us in a negative way. It's those negative experiences that we have that may have singed, if you will, some sort of imprint in our memories, and they become traumatic to us and for us. So we go up to a group of kids that we don't know in the cafeteria, and we try to introduce ourselves to them, and they clown us, they make fun of us, and basically we end up walking away from the table like, dang, dude, you look stupid. Well, because of that negative experience, guess what happens?
Never gonna do that again.
We become more gun shy. Exactly. And so, because of that trauma, sometimes unaddressed trauma prevents us from being our true selves, our full selves. And I'm listening to this book right now on tape. And this book, it's called My Grandmother's Hands, Racialized Trauma and the Pathway to Mending Our Hearts and Bodies. Yes, the precept or the context is centered around race, but there is also a lot of useful and in education we say meaty information about trauma and just dealing with trauma outside of race in terms of how that impacts our outlook on life. And oftentimes the things that we have suppressed are the things that prevent us from going and growing in the way that we truly need to.
Yeah, I think I want to get into like this idea of like social anxiety and social fear, right? Because I think that's super interesting why that's a thing, right? Like if you really think about it, like most people are afraid of death. Like that's probably like the number one thing
Hmm.
because that's a real thing. Like we don't know what's gonna happen after we die, and people are afraid of what's gonna happen. Like we don't get to see the world again. But this idea of just taking a chance and talking, like even in like a simple interaction or a conversation, people get so afraid and don't want to do that and want to stick behind their phones. And I don't know. I think that's super interesting that like as a society we are afraid to interact with each other in a way. And I think
And it's
that's
getting just worse and worse
it's
and
getting
worse
worse.
as
And I
like
and I
technology.
I can't put a finger on if it's technology or if it's just our generation as a whole. But I think that's super interesting that there's a huge like social anxiety, social fear thing that this world we live in today.
I would just say, I have a degree in counseling. And so one of the things that I would say is that it's a combination of many of the things that you guys just mentioned. But also you have to understand that mental health is real. And sometimes again, certain responses, certain behaviors can be triggered by certain experiences. And let's just use this pandemic as an example, right? What this pandemic brought to the light, what it has forced us to acknowledge is that through isolation, um, either we have become strengthened or we have become exposed, our community, exposed in that um, we haven't truly cultivated relationships in the way that we needed to. We haven't truly developed or challenged ourselves to step out and take risks in the way that we needed to. And so now that and I'll also say, and we don't really know ourselves. And so now that we were forced to spend all of this time by ourselves or with a select group of people, whether it's our immediate family or whatever our circle was, what we've discovered is just like, man, like there's some things that I don't know, or there's some things that I'm uncomfortable with. And so the pandemic has caused a lot of people, myself included, to become introspective and become more reflective and take stock and inventory of the things that we have or the things that we don't have. And I'm not talking about material possessions, but I'm just talking about some of those soft skills. Am I a communicator? Am I a people person? Am I extrovert or introvert in that regard? What is it that I do or don't do or would like to do? Can I make this relationship stronger? I'm going to pause for a moment, guys, as I got a parent coming in. Give me a second.
Okay. I'm gonna ask you one final question before we start wrapping it up here. Again, I appreciate you for your time.
No,
Um,
man, thank you guys.
um, and this is a really broad one as well. If you could travel anywhere in the world, Dr. Bolden, where would you go and why?
If I could travel anywhere in the world,
Super broad question, but
am I traveling by myself? Am I
um,
traveling by myself with a group of friends?
what do you think?
By himself.
Yeah, by yourself.
This is going to sound a bit odd to some people, um, but it's sentimental to me. I would probably travel to a third world country or an area that is considered to be war torn, and I would do so um, so that I could help, so that I could serve others, but more importantly, to help me stay humble. And what I mean by that is that here in America, we take so many different things for granted, and to have a modern day real life example of what we do take for granted and maybe not be able to actualize being in those war torn areas or being in some of those third world countries, I think would just give me a greater appreciation of life, but also a greater appreciation of life in this country. And a reminder and serve as a reminder, like, dude, don't take this for granted. The mere fact that I can get up and I can walk outside now and get in my car and drive wherever I want to, that's a luxury that so many people don't have in these areas. And so again, it's about treasuring um, the, the the liberties that we have and taking advantage of the moments that we have, being around others, doing for others. Because when you help others, you help yourself. So for me, um, I would say one of those areas, like I said, a third world country or war torn area, because it's about helping others.
Dude, for real, I don't know if you think about this like a lot, but a good example is Haiti. Are you familiar with Haiti, the country?
Me,
Yeah,
yeah, superficially, yeah, I am.
because they had a tsunami or something that like destroyed the. I don't remember what it was exactly. It might have been war torn or something, but their country, they're struggling on food, and they're it's a poor country, and it's crazy to me that there's several countries out there that are the same exact way as that.
I just
Where
feel like for like especially people who live in America, because everybody that doesn't live here is like, oh, like America is like number one country, like place to be.
hmm
But then we live here and we're just like, it sucks. But then like when you go and look at like some of these other countries, you're like, okay, like you realize like,
hmm
America's really not.
but what's also crazy is that like the countries that are like that, like a good example is like Africa. Like the kids in Africa, if you go to visit them, they're the happiest little kids ever,
Mm.
and they have practically nothing. They have to go out every day and scrounge up water and food, and yet they're happier than
Mm.
us as Americans who can go to have the privilege of going to the store and getting things at our fingertips, which
And then
is
their
which
phone
is
dies
crazy.
and their day is ruined.
Yeah, and that kind of goes to like this idea of what happiness truly is, because in America, I think like we're so stuck on like materialism and making materialism things affect our happiness, whereas I think like knowing that as different countries don't have material things and can't get those things, I think that plays a huge part on what this idea of happiness truly is.
I would say that, and I hope my comments didn't come across that way. I fully acknowledge and understand that here in America we have some areas where abject poverty exists. Families are destitute,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah. Just to
I
clarify.
fully acknowledge. So I don't want to come across as if we live in a proverbial land of milk and honey, so to speak. But I think that in going to some of these other areas where there isn't much support, um, it certainly would lend a different lens to me. The other thing that I'll say, it's all contextual, right? Because you're right. Here in Delaware, you might say, or we might say, meaning the three of us, we might say, "Dang, my phone died. That's crazy." Well, all right. Well, I'll just run out to the car and grab a charger out my trunk, or I'll just turn my car on and let my phone charge. Whereas other people may not have that luxury, and so I fully acknowledge that again, the things we take for granted aren't necessarily luxuries that other people have here in this country. And then the last thing I'll say is that um, sometimes we allow images and the media to create false narratives for us. In that, and I'll use the example that you just shared, Nick, and that's with Africa, for instance. We view Africa as a country. Well, Africa isn't a country, it's a continent that is comprised of multiple countries, but so often we see what has been presented to us in the media, and we think that, oh man, all of these kids over here in China, all of the kids in Africa and Indonesia, they're all barefoot, they're all drinking this dirty water because of the commercials that we see, and again because of the marketing that certain companies use to try to solicit funds and or volunteerism. And so for me, that's why I said, like, it would be best for me to leave and go elsewhere so that I can see something for myself
Mm-hmm.
and not something that is necessarily presented to me with the purpose or goal of, again, satisfying somebody else's agenda.
Mm. Totally, I agree with that. I think, traveling to Hawaii might be great or whatever, or, going to, a nice beach somewhere, but being able to humble yourself is even greater, I think. So,
Hey, well, listen, man, guys, man, I thank you all both for taking the time to A, contact me, but even B, having an interest in having me join your podcast and being a guest on the podcast. I truly feel honored that you guys consider me, and I mean that sincerely. So thank you. If there's anything that I can do for you all in the future, please don't hesitate to reach out. If that means being a guest again,
hmm
or trying to create a panel, or coming on in concert with someone, please let me know. If that means writing a letter of recommendation for you, as you all continue to navigate the work world, the workforce, please let me know. If you see me around town and you just need a word of encouragement, if you want to pray together, let me know. We can definitely do so. But I think that what you guys are doing, which is using your voice to uplift and enlighten, is totally dope.
for sure. And I'll say this, when we first started, we were like, you were one of the first names that we wrote down
Yeah.
on the list of like who we wanted to come on. So, you know, we wanted to thank you for coming on, and just, giving us the chance. I know it's like, oh, these kids, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I name out there, but, we appreciate you coming on
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
No, man, anytime I can support young people, but anytime I can support young people who are doing positive things, it's a win for everybody involved. So I want to see y'all win. And obviously, when y'all win, Delaware wins.
Yes, sir.
So that's what it's about.
All right. Well, that's going to be the end of this episode, guys. Again, thank you, Dr. Bolden, for coming on. He's doing a phone call right now. And yeah, that's the end of what is episode 11.
Mhm.
All right.
Man, you're more than welcome. Thank you.
Yep. See you guys.